Just quickly to explain, my name is Osama. I'm one of the guys who started something called the Free Gaza movement, a dream to go to Gaza without permission from a third country, Israel, Jordan, or Egypt. And there's a lot of Free Gaza movement members here, and we're very proud that we've managed to kind of provoke a little bit of imagination that we can do it as citizens. And the next flotilla that's going to be organized next to Gaza will have at least 62 ships, marking a year of each single Nakba year. As Bernie said, in Lebanon, in the Gulf, in Turkey, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, all over the world, in America, everybody's organizing, and I think we will see the lights and we'll announce very shortly when this will take place. Also, there is another flotilla, I don't know what you call it in English, for the airplanes which are going to go to Ramallah and to Gaza. Is there a word for it? Air flotilla. Here you go. I'm going to just pick up from where Jamal finished, and I'm not going to repeat what he said. I'm going to take from the minute when I saw one of our colleague journalists were shot filming a helicopter. His name is Jawdet, and he's a Turkish guy. He was responsible for the internet. I was doing and coordinating a bit of the media on the boat, especially for like those media who wasn't present in that boat, and trying to kind of make contact with them and give them some airspace and give them some special reporting from the boat and make sure that the camera have like enough lighting, etc., etc. We in the media team in the boat, we had two plans. One plan was to announce our frequency, and the other plan was to have like a special frequency that we didn't announce, and we were about to send to the media who subscribed in secret. And that's the reason why you've got to see what happened on that boat, because we knew it's a media war, and we knew that Israel probably going to attack in the darkness, kill as many as possible, as they usually do, without anybody noticing or watching what they're doing. And we didn't know that that plan succeeded. And I think the Turkish media team and the director and the EE.UU media guys should be saluted for the massive achievement of getting the message out there. Amongst them Jawdet, this Turkish beautiful man who didn't speak enough English, but he had enough and more than enough love to communicate with all the journalists on board and to give them solidarity and support. So after we were attacked from both sides, I was on the left side of the deck, on the right-hand side of the deck, in which we knew that there is a helicopter. It was very noisy, very loud, very windy. Everybody was panicking, running in different directions, and I was trying to make sure that people like really safe, and I was running like all over. And I was running on that right side hand of the deck when somebody fell on my head. Didn't realize what was it, a bag, a boat, a human being, a soldier. And I didn't realize it was a heavy soldier until I saw him like on the floor, going, screaming, crying, and got a gun in his hand and shooting in different directions. I was completely terrified, and another Turkish guy came, and we managed to disarm him. It was very difficult. He was being disarmed, and then we were not prepared for this. It was completely like an act of self-defense and an instant reaction to what you would do if you found a man, a soldier, a pirate, whatever, shooting next to you. I mean, what else would you do apart from disarming him? And he was taken downstairs to the hospital that we created for our injured, who we thought will be suffering from tear gas and from rubber bullets. We didn't know that we will be treating people with live bullets and ammunition. And it's really ridiculous because we end up using the medical aid that we were taking to Gaza to aid ourselves on the boat. It was really, really sad. Jawdet was taking, he was taking picture of that helicopter which was shooting these people from upstairs. So there's two helicopters. One helicopter is putting down soldiers, and the other shooting. And as he was taking that picture, he fell down. We didn't know what happened until he was taking shelter, because we were screaming, take a shelter, take a shelter. When he didn't move, I went with another colleague of mine trying to pull him back. I saw a scratch in his head. Put my hand underneath his head. I was pulling him back. By the time I reached the corner under the shelter, we were really running out of, bullets were coming from everywhere. We could see the affliction of these bullets. It was like an American Hollywood movie, but it was really real. By the time we got to the corner, I found like there's a hot material in my hand. I didn't realize it was his brain in my hand. And for the whole time, I mean, I could see him moving slowly, snoring. and we knew that he's gone, and it was really very emotional. And the other bloody scene that you see after that, which is not basically how many, we didn't know how many people were getting injured, we didn't know how many people were dead. As Jamal said, when we went downstairs to this scene of horror, this scene, we're slippering on blood. Like people, not just the injured people who was, I was covered with blood. My colleagues were covered with blood. So we don't know who've been injured, who's not injured, who've got the blood of others, who's killed. So it was really chaotic. It was madness. And the doctors were doing their best to stop the bleeding, and they couldn't. One of the guys, Haidar Ali, who was shot in his legs and he died bleeding upstairs next to a doctor who was hopelessly looking at him dying, couldn't stop his bleeding because he didn't have means and he wasn't allowed to do so. I'm going to go down to when we were taken down to the room, and I'll explain why I've got this on me. Jamal was in the saloon number 3. Saloon number 3 or 2? Saloon number 3 with others trying to kind of help and coordinate to take the rest of the passengers to the soldiers, because they requested one by one to come and handcuffed and go to the upper deck. And I was left with the injured, with Haneen Zobi, who's an Israeli member of the parliament, and being an ex-ISM, well, still an ISMer, in ISM we know how to approach the soldiers non-violently and talk to them. So I found myself talking and communicating to the soldiers, and the soldiers gave me clear orders. You've got 5 minutes to evacuate all the injured. At this point I was like, are you kidding me? We've got 39 people lying down. The doctor is still operating on them. Some of them are screaming in pain, and you give me 5 minutes to evacuate 39 beds? Are you crazy? So I was basically talking to them to buy more time. And then eventually they agreed to give me another 5 minutes, so 10 minutes. But I keep pushing, and they told me clearly that they will not enter the room because they know that there's guns inside the room, and they will get 3 dogs to enter the room. 3 of these dogs are trained to bite any human being in that room. And at that point I was freaking out. I've got my friends who martyred in the other corner, and that I really don't want them to see them being bitten by a dog. I don't want the injured to be bitten by a dog. So I entered another phase of negotiation, like, can you be a human and talk to me as a human? I will go with you. We will check the bodies, we'll check the injured, and we'll try and, just to evacuate them as peaceful as possible. So some of the injured guys were taking, those who can walk, they were taken to the salon number 3, and actually they were handcuffed and took with everybody, including a man who, I believe he lost sight in his eye because he was hit in his eye. And those that we couldn't literally move, 15 of them, they were laying there, and as I said, one of the doctors was still operating an operation, one of them without anesthetic. So it was really like very, very visually hard and very emotionally draining. And the other guys were shot like 5 bullets, and they have fractions. And it was like an emergency scene, an emergency room scene. So I identified one of the soldiers who was a medic, and I was trying to communicate with him that they need special care, they need to be evacuated from here as soon as possible, but they need a stretcher. Some of them have a severe fraction, some of them have internal bleeding, and if you flip them to the other side, the blood will go to their lungs and they'll eventually die. And I was trying to make him aware that he's responsible for their life, and the doctor was trying his best to explain to him that these injured people are really, really in desperate need to be evacuated. Anyway, so the medic wasn't interested. He just wanted to look at the blue eyes, and he thinks if your eyes are open, you're completely fine and you can be taken away. We refused to have a stretcher. They were taken on sleeping bags and blankets. And one of the really severely injured guys that the doctor was operating and forming an operation on him, I will come to his story later. Anyway, in the score of me escorting these soldiers and trying to kind of explain and translate and whatever, there were another group of soldiers on the other side of the saloon checking and going and coming. And I see 3 of the soldiers found one of the soldiers' pistols, one of those soldiers that we disarmed, pistols. It was falling on the ground. It just like, not between the chairs, but on the corner of one of the chairs. And they were like these kind of like exciting minutes between the soldiers. So they were this team and the other team. So on the medic team, they have a camera with them, yeah? And they were filming the injured, and they're filming me and filming other people. And the other team, they have no camera. So when that excitement minutes start happening, they wanted the camera to come back. And by that time, they have their dog with them, and they put the gun in one of the bags. And on the camera, the dog is like getting excited, and they opened the bag and took the gun, and they filmed it. It was a completely staged, fictionalized scene of finding a pistol, which is clearly an Israeli pistol, in one of the passengers' bag. So that's the pistol. Now, At that point, Hanin was doing her best to kind of communicate with the soldiers and trying to kind of ease the evacuation of these injured people. And I was trying my best to kind of get the word of one of the commandos that the dogs will not bite the dead bodies, and, you know, I will be with them until the end, and you know, don't worry, it will be fine, whatever. When the doctor who was operating on one of the patients, well, I don't know why, but he was refusing to let them touch this patient, to put him in a blanket. He was clearly shouting to them, mixing English with Turkish, with Arabic, with whatever language he's trying to communicate with these soldiers, that he's severely injured, they can't move him, and whatever. And by that time, he was beating that Wahib and him. They took this out of him, they threw it, and then they took the patient, chucked him in the blanket, and he was screaming, and they took him to the airplane. That scene for me, it was really inhuman, and I will never forget it in my life. And that's why I've got this from that doctor, to be souvenir with me as long as I can.